The following is a review for critical, analytical, and educational purposes only, and is protected under Article 17 and 107 in the United States Fair Use Code. This video is not an infringement on copyright. Please enjoy the video.
I really wanted to love Godzilla. Make no mistake, I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and I've grown up loving the character and most of his movies, but I have been a bit hesitant towards this American reboot, mainly because of director Gareth Edwards, whose directorial debut was Monsters in 2010, and Monsters was a pile of wank. However, I can say that there are a few moments in this new Godzilla movie that are absolutely perfect. Visually, the movie is spectacular with gorgeous camera work and cinematography, state-of-the-art special effects, a jaw-dropping sense of scale and scope, and Godzilla himself is a magnificent visual creation. I liked the globe-hopping nature of the story, and while Bryan Cranston isn't in the movie nearly as much as the trailers would suggest, he does get the best human parts of the film. However, a lot of this brilliantness is crushed by Godzilla's most powerful enemy yet, and that is the structure of his own movie. This movie has some of the weakest structure and pacing that I've seen in a blockbuster for some time. You see, despite this being a Godzilla movie, there's hardly any Godzilla in here until the halfway mark. You'd think this means that the movie is trying to do what Spielberg did with Jaws in the 70s by not showing the creature until the tension had reached its peak, but if that's what the movie was going for, it missed the point entirely for why it worked in Jaws and those other movies. In Jaws, Bruce the shark was a constant presence. You didn't know when he was going to strike next, and the entire plot was driven by his actions even if he wasn't directly there. But here, Godzilla literally has no presence until the 60-minute mark. If it wasn't for the fact that the title of the movie was Godzilla, I would have been genuinely surprised by his inclusion when he finally showed up. Then when Godzilla shows up and we get a full body view of the stunningly realised creature as he gets ready to fight his latest enemy Muto, who is actually the first original Godzilla monster since Megaguirus, Godzilla then roars, and then it cuts to an unrelated scene where someone is watching the fight on the news, but we the audience don't get to see it. Then half an hour later, Godzilla shows up in San Francisco, gets ready to fight the Muto again, he roars, and then it cuts to another scene. It's like the ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but spread out across 90 minutes. This is not building tension. This is not adding suspense. This is just lazy filmmaking. Speaking of lazy, Godzilla seems to have mastered teleportation in this movie, as he actually disappears from scenes as they are happening whenever it's convenient for the plot to have him not be there. It's actually kind of baffling. As for the human story, it's generic, but okay. Aaron Taylor-Johnson is your standard soldier character, Elizabeth Olsen is given nothing to do but cry and act scared, Ken Watanabe is awesome but he's not developed enough, Trilbee award-winning actor Sally Hawkins is completely wasted, and the child actors, another Spielberg trope this movie is trying to emulate, are actually pretty poor, which wouldn't be a problem, but whenever the movie wants to artificially add more drama, it just throws in a child that needs saving, so it gets pretty repetitive and manipulative. But if you came here wanting to see giant monsters throw down in spectacular fashion, then you do get that in the last 15 minutes. But it is amazing. In fact, it's some of the best stuff I've seen on a big screen this year. It's just unfortunate that in those last 15 minutes, there's only about 4 or 5 minutes of that fighting, as Godzilla and Muto tend to be fighting in the background as Kick-Ass and his team of soldiers are off on their own mission. I'm sorry, but in a Godzilla movie, why am I supposed to be more interested in generic soldiers while there are giant monsters fighting above them? At least the soldiers in the Transformers movies fought the Transformers and interacted with the CGI creations in the climactic battles. Here, the two feel completely disconnected. And yes, I negatively compared an aspect of Godzilla to Transformers. You may think I hate this movie, but the problem is that what it gets right, it gets spectacularly right. Godzilla as a monster is magnificent. I actually really liked Muto as a concept and in execution. The scene on the railway bridge is brilliant, Cranston's backstory is genuinely effective, and Godzilla has atomic breath, yes! The music by Alexander Desplat, who is one of my favourite composers, is also great, but there is no sign of the original Godzilla theme. Seriously, how does that happen? That would be like having a Jaws movie without the John Williams theme, or Star Wars without the opening credits sting. There are people saying that the original theme is in the background of the new theme, but yeah, I don't hear it at all, and I'm actively trying to hear it. And like I said, the effects are incredibly impressive, but the structure is dreadful, it's poorly paced, and for the most part the characters are rote, and Godzilla, despite being given a semblance of a personality thanks to great facial tics and expressions, isn't given much of a motivation or rationale for anything he does. Also, the fact that this movie wants to be both a disaster movie and a kaiju brawler movie smacks of the creators wanting to have their cake and eat it, but they don't know what flavour the cake is. As a monster movie taken on its own without my preconceived notions of what I want to see in a Godzilla movie, it's okay, but as a Godzilla movie, I can't help but feel underwhelmed, but the good parts are so freaking good that part of me genuinely hopes that this movie succeeds so that it could be our next big movie franchise, but then you fall into the trap of the potential sequel basically being what the first movie should have been. It's good to have you back, Gojira, but something tells me that the best is still yet to come. I give Godzilla 2.5 stars out of 5.
Trilbee, Trilbee, Trilbee.